So my reading this week was on Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of the Rights of Women. And I'm just going to do a little summary, chapter by chapter, of what we read, which would be chapters 1 through 5. So in the first chapter, this is where Wollstonecraft considers the rights and involved duties of mankind, and she has three assumptions. Her first would be is that the power of reason is what places humankind above the rest of the natural world. Her second one is that virtue and moral goodness are what make one human being better than the other. And then her last one is that God gave us all passions and temptations so that we could gain knowledge by struggling against them. And then in chapter 2, this is where she kind of begins to talk about sexism and all that jazz. So here is where she says that even though men may believe that women need the guidance of them because they think that they're stronger and that they have more rights than us. But she states that if a woman has a soul, then they have the same rational powers as a man. And yes. She also wants to make it clear in this chapter that she's not trying to make women higher on the hierarchical scale. She's saying that on that scale, men are here and women are here, and we need to bring women up to here and have them both be at equal authority and power and have the same rights. So in chapter 3, she covers pretty much the same subject as in chapter 2. It's just that here she mentions that there's only one way that men kind of have an advantage over women, and that would be physical strength. But in all other aspects, we're completely equal. In chapter 4, she presents some counter arguments to her push for equality. And some of these would be is that some men think that women shouldn't be educated, which is what she talks a lot about, is the education that women have and how it's kind of not up to the standard that it needs to be, that all the women really gets educated on is like little tasks around the house, so that when she becomes a wife that she can do the most to please her husband, and that they're not getting really the same education as a man would or that women get in today's age. And so one of her counter arguments was that some men think that women shouldn't be educated, as then they'll try to strive for things in society, which apparently is a no-no for them back then. And then other men argue that they actually do put women up higher than they put themselves or any other men, and that they treat them like goddesses. And and then also there are some women who argue that they don't really want to be educated, as then they'll be expected to do more. Mood. But and then they'll lose their so-called power that they have over men. But Wollstonecraft begs the question that if all women if all that women are to be and to look forward to in life is to be a housewife and a mother, then how can they be expected to do that without the right form of education? And how are they supposed to help their children become better beings if they don't have that right education themselves? And so in the final chapter, chapter 5 that we read this week, she discusses that she decides to discuss men and all of the wrongs that they've written and committed towards women. So in this, she attacks Rousseau because he's very sexist. And because he believes that all a woman is expected to do in her life is to sit still, look pretty, and please her husband. And he also feels that they need to be taught how to restrain themselves and that they need to resist their desires And if they don't do that, then they can't truly become a lady. And that he also commands men that they need to be more aggressive with their wives, so that their wives will know who's really in charge and in power. So Wollstonecraft warns that whoever agrees with Rousseau, that they just need to keep in mind that their wives will begin to become frustrated if they feel that they're being like trapped and caged in. And one of the main ways for them to release their frustrations is to have an affair. And nobody really wants their wife to cheat on them. So she also ends this chapter by saying that women must either choose to lead a life of moral goodness or a life of shallowness, and that both is not obtainable for them. They need to choose one or the other. So this leads me into my discussion questions for this week. And if you guys wish, you could use this to use for the discussion posts. If not, it's cool. The first one would be, would you still say that there is sexism in our world and society today? The second one is in chapter 4, Wollstonecraft mentions that she feels pity for those women whose reputation has been ruined by having premarital sex or having a baby out of wedlock. Do any of you still feel that this plays a role in our society today? And in chapter 5, Wollstonecraft states that women must choose either a life of moral goodness or a life of shallowness, and that there is no in between. To what extent do you agree with her? Thanks for listening.